Good afternoon, I'm Haryanto Diman with the latest in Myanmar. Myanmar's military declared a one-year state of emergency earlier today and appointed a general as acting president. An announcement on military-owned TV said the move was needed to preserve the stability of the state, accusing the country's election commission of failing to address huge irregularities in the November election. Power will be handed to military chief Min Aung Hlaing. The move comes hours after leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other senior figures from the ruling National League for Democracy party were detained in an early morning raid. Tensions have been escalating between the civilian government and the powerful military that stirred fears of a coup in the aftermath of the election. I'm joined now by the Straits Times' Indochina bureau chief Tan Hui Yi. Morning, Hui Yi, what's the latest that you're hearing?
Yes, good morning. As you mentioned, several top civilian leaders, including State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, have been detained. There's been a state of emergency declared. The military says the election commission failed to resolve the problem of electoral fraud and that the government had ignored its call to delay the opening of parliament. The military accuses the government of violating the constitution and taking power from the people. So Vice President Min Sui, the military nominee, has now been made acting president. The news is filtering out as we speak, but from what I know, the phone lines, TV channels, mobile internet connections have been disrupted. I was unable to call people in Myanmar this morning on normal telephone lines, but I was still able to get through early on through apps like WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram. And there is a fear that those connections may disappear soon. I'm also hearing that roads to Naypyidaw, as well as several other areas, have been blocked.
Right. Hui, we just want to understand when someone, in this case, political figures is detained by the army in Myanmar, what does that mean?
Well, they have been detained, but their lives are not necessarily in danger. Aung San Suu Kyi, as we know, spent some 15 years under house arrest when Myanmar was under military rule. And many of the key politicians in the National League for Democracy were imprisoned under the military regime. But the detention sends a strong signal that it will not be business as usual anymore for Myanmar politics since 2015, when the NLD won its first landslide victory. You know, the civilian government has had to wrestle with this junta-crafted constitution that forces it to work with an essentially autonomous military. The military, as you know, controls a quarter of all seats in parliament, as well as 3 ministries. And the government has struggled with this very unwieldy condition. Its relations with the military have deteriorated, and I guess the military has decided it has had enough.
Right. Let's look outside of Myanmar. Now, Australia and the US have reacted, saying the Myanmar army must release elected leaders immediately. Hui, can foreign powers intervene and that wouldn't, result in further escalation?
Well, foreign governments can put pressure on Myanmar, as they did during the long years when Myanmar was under military rule. But sanctions that were imposed during that period affected the lives of common people. So whatever intervention that the foreign powers choose, they will need to be very targeted this time in order to create a situation where resolution is possible.
Right. And of course, Hui, this story is developing and like you rightly mentioned earlier on as well, we are still monitoring what's going to happen throughout the day. But what can we expect for the rest of the day today?
Well, a big question is how people will eventually respond to the military takeover. It's been muted so far because it's still early and the supporters of the NLD are angry. But will they take to the streets with this COVID pandemic? And how will the military respond to that? We will have to watch this space.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the update, Hui. I've been speaking to our Indochina bureau chief, Tan Hui Yi. As mentioned, this story is developing, so you can read the latest on straitstimes.com. Well, thanks for joining me. I'm Haryanto Diman, and I'll be back later at 5:30 p.m. on The Big Story.